where we, just sort of come together as a sort of online community and discuss either projects that are relevant to what Open Knowledge International is doing technically, like open spending or open trials or frictionless data, as well as sharing some community tools that are being developed, or provide a space for people to communicate about projects they want to work on together. So just so you know, we have a Gitter channel for chatting, which it's not a big deal, but I would prefer having any kind of conversation here, as it's, it sort of will stick around, and we could just keep track of our discussion there. But obviously, if you're more comfortable just chatting in this particular chat room on GoToMeeting, that's fine too. And I'll just make sure we sort of capture whatever we talked about. So, right. So basically, before we start, I just wanted to, highlight the fact that we recently published a post by one of our frictionless data partners on the Labs blog about Git for data analysis. And it's pretty fascinating. Basically, we're going to be working with the Pacific Northwest National Labs to pilot some of our tools for frictionless data. They work on a project called Active Data Biology for data analysis of gene expression in biological samples, and we'll be piloting some of our tools, especially good tables, for continuously validating the data produced in this project. So yeah, if you're interested in this kind of thing, you can just check it out there, leave a comment, etc. Great. This particular Labs Hangout will feature two sets of topics. The first being what we're calling the project Data Activist. I'll check with them for the actual pronunciation of it. But Sam and Joel will introduce Data Activist and what they're doing in France. After that, we'll take a look at possibly what it would take to, form some kind of team, or for adapting Freuda for personal data requests instead of just freedom of information requests. So without further ado, I'd like to maybe get Sam or Joel to share their screen.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Dan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. I just wanted to check on how we can share our screens on GoToMeeting, because I don't know how to do that, and I've been looking for that function.
Okay. Let me see if I can stop sharing my screen. Okay. Okay. So it'll be. This is Sam, right? So let's see. Can I make you presenter? Okay. So I think now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Should be good. Do you see my screen now?
I do.
Okay, so you see that I'm reading the post that you mentioned. So these are a very quick and simple slide deck, but more important is the discussion that we have. So the pronunciation, basically, it's called data activist, data activist. I know there is a debate on the pronunciation, even on the word data, but let's say data activist in one word. And we'll discuss why we have that name. Just a very quick presentation of the two of us. So I'm Samuel, I'm a sociologist. I just finished a PhD dissertation which deals with the backroom work of open data. Basically, I look at everything that happens before the data is published, and so how the data is selected, how it is identified, how it is transformed, and how it is published. What I do in my sociological work is that I try to understand what happened behind the scenes and how it shapes the type of transparency that we have through open data. I've been around open knowledge for a little while, for more than 5 years now, and I'm the co-founder of Open Knowledge France, and also started some projects such as School of Data in French called Les Données. And I am based in Aix-en-Provence, in the south of France, but I'm very often in Paris, and I hope to see some of you next week in Paris for the OGP Summit. And next is my colleague Joel. Maybe you can introduce yourself. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so basically I'm a political scientist by training, and I'm a self-taught data scientist. I had to basically learn that kind of things for my dissertation. I've used quite a lot of open data for my research, which is about the vote for the Front National in France, so the French far right party. And so I've taught myself R for that purpose, and so now we're trying to using that set of skills with Sam for data activists.
So that's the beginning of our team. We just started the company weeks ago, and it's a very new creation. But the idea was to mix someone with skills in how we can open data with how we can use open data. So the name data activist. So why did we use this word, which is quite catching? First is maybe on our form. So we are a cooperative company. We are inspired by the Commons. We believe that open data is part to that movement, and we want to share the values of that movement. And so we are a collectively owned and democratically controlled business. We have the same form as another cooperative company that you may know, which is OCDS, Open Data Services Co-op, ODSC, which was started by Tim Davis, that you know probably. And we share that form of company, a cooperative company. The second reason why we called data activists is obviously we believe in open data, we believe in open knowledge, and we want to help our organization to open the data and to use open data. So that's the main difference from other actors in the sector, is that we're specialized in open data, and we're not we don't help organizations to better manage the data internally. We are dedicated to support open data project. And the third reason is that we apply these values to ourselves. So all our training materials, content, and source code are freely reusable and released on Creative Commons. So if you look on our GitHub account, that's where we published most of our project. And so, for instance, very recently we did a training on R, and so we published a complete documentation of this training. Joel will talk to you about that just later, but this is just one example of that very important values that we want to apply to our company. And the fourth reason is that we want to help activists, and we really want to work with NGOs, but not only with NGOs, because we want also to create change and to apply these activist values that appear through open data into organizations, because we know they can create change and they can support things. So in a nutshell, we are called data activists, and we open data, we make it used and useful. That's the purpose of the company, is that we saw that a lot of data is sometimes badly opened, or just that the data is sometimes not useful or cannot be used, and we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that when data is open, it can be used, and we want to support people who want to open good quality, useful data. About our activities, so three main types of activities. So basically consulting, so we help organizations to open the data, get open data and use them. We do also some training. So I just showed you a training that we do quite frequently, actually, on R4 as an introduction to data science. So how we can harness the power of open data to make much more advanced use than what you can do with most public tools. But we also do training on the essentials of open data, and also just on how open data can be used. And we also do mediation. So mediation is, we also think that a lot of open data projects have aimed only at developers. So developers are great, but sometimes the general public is not addressed by open data policies, and we want to change that by creating experiences in which general publics, people who sometimes are not digitally literate, to help them use open data through, for instance, data expeditions. So as we share a lot of our materials online, we also want to contribute to projects such as School of Data. And it's really part of our project to be a contributor to these types of community project, and also to what the OKFN Lab does. So that's why we are also here, because we want to share what we do and to make it useful for others. We work with public bodies, companies, international institutions, and NGOs. So we don't work only with NGOs, as you have thought with the name data activist, but what we do for a public institution or our company is shared free, so it can be used by anyone, and especially activists with less financial resources. So Joel, maybe you can present some project that we do at the Data Activist.
Yeah, okay. Can you continue showing the slides?
You don't see the slides right now?
Yeah, I do see them. But if you can keep moving them on. So yeah, we have a number of projects going on. I'm just gonna present a few of them, just so that you can get a general sense of the kind of things that we're doing at the moment, even though, as Samuel said, we're still at an early stage of our work and development, so we might do different things in the future, but that's what we're working on at the moment. So the first project I'd like to speak about is the Open Contracting project. We're working for the Open Contracting Partnership, which you might or might not be aware of. It's an international coalition which is in particular sustained by the World Bank, and which aims at helping and pushing governments towards opening their contracting data. And in particular, it has created a data standard, the Open Contracting Data Standard, the OCDS, which has a definition, and we've been commissioned to translate that standard into French, so that French and French-speaking countries can use that standard to publish their contracting data. So we're finishing that project at the moment. We'll present the French translation next week at the OGP Summit. And hopefully, if things are going well, we might be the French help desk for the OCDS. So every time a country, government, or a local authority wants to publish data using the OCDS in the French-speaking world, we would be the guys to whom they would turn to. So that might be of interest for frictionless data, because although at the moment OCDS is not explicitly using frictionless data, it might be interesting um, to see if there is a possibility to build a data package implementation of the OCDS in order to distribute OCDS. And yeah. So that's the first contract the first project we're working on. Sam, can you show the next slide? Thanks. So yeah, as Sam said earlier, we're also into the business of training to open data and to data science, and in particular, at the moment we're teaching R quite often. There is quite a lot of demand for that, and we're mainly aiming at beginners and people who don't have a technical background. So it doesn't necessarily go very far away or very in depth into the internals of R, but that might also be an opportunity to tell people who might be using R about data packages and that kind of thing. Even though I have to say, in our experience at the moment in France, there is not much awareness of data packages and why that might be useful. As Sam said earlier, we're systematically publishing our the documentation of the training we're doing. So everything is online and with Creative Commons license. And Sam, maybe you can move on to the next slide. Okay, thanks. Okay, so that's a project that we want to work on, but we haven't started working on yet, and so we don't know exactly how exactly we're gonna do that yet. But one thing that we would very much like to do is to create some sort of plugin, let's say, to the French national open data portal, data.gouv.fr, which is nice because there's a lot of data into it. But if you ever had the chance to use it, you might have noticed that it doesn't have a lot of functionalities in terms of either visualizing the data which is published on that portal, or exporting the data sets into various data formats. At the moment, the only thing that data.gouv.fr does is provide you with a link to a data set, which might be in any format, and very often it's XLS spreadsheets or that kind of thing, which is not really nice either for developers or for the larger public. So our project is to offer an alternative web page for that portal. We're not touching to the data, but we just provide. We would like to just provide an additional layer on top of the portal, which could allow people to visualize the data or subset it, or just have a first look at it. And that would very likely involve using the data package as a pivot format. So the idea would be first to try to automatically or semi-automatically, more likely, to convert the existing data sets into a tabular data package, or more generally a data package, and then reuse existing tools to visualize that data, or just have a look at it, or subset it, or that kind of things. So of course it might not be possible to do it automatically for all data which is hosted on data.gov.fr, but maybe we will start by doing that for the most popular data sets on the portal, and maybe leave aside the more arcane and not very often used data sets.
Just to complete on what you say, Joel, one thing you must know about French open data is that in France we've used for decades the comma as a decimal separator, which means that some CSV specification which understand automatically the comma as a decimal separator as a value separator will have difficulties interpreting French CSV. So most often you will see that semicolon is used in France for separating values, which is a difficulty. And so we have our own dialect. And so that's why we are also very interested in the data package format, is that it can overcome the difficulty that we have with all French CSVs, is that they are often badly interpreted by automatic scripts. So this was a quick presentation, but thanks for your attention. We'll very like to answer your questions. And also here is a link to our website, and feel free to contact us. So this is our website, so, and you can contact us here. It's in French for the moment, but we'll make sure to publish many stuff in English.
Great.
Are there any questions?
Thank you. I actually see a question on the chat from Gianfranco Ciccioni. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Thanks. Objective only on NGOs and.
Actually, it's a good question. But actually, to be fair, maybe it was not clear in our presentation, but NGOs and activists are not the only clients we're focusing on. And actually, I think that in practice, our primary clients will probably be public organizations, and in particular local authorities, because France passed a law just a few months ago which will need all local authorities to publish open data. So there's quite a large market which is opening for businesses like ours. So yeah, we're not restraining ourselves to NGOs and activists, but we're definitely very interested into it in terms of the kind of interesting projects that we can lead with them, even though we're very well aware that it's probably not where the most business is.
Yeah, we are aware of also what you say, that it might scare people away. Well, we think that as we contribute to the community, they will know that. So, and we work already with quite a lot of organizations, especially like public organizations. The thing we have not worked with companies so far, and maybe that's a difficulty, but I think we can overcome as we are quite known in the community, and so as we also contribute to some project. But to just go back on the name, we're called data activists for several reasons, and one is that we we defend open data. And it's not only because we work with activists. Are there any other questions? No?
Yeah, I could comment that it's really interesting that you're kind of like approaching this as a business. So it would be really interesting to hear how that turns out. I made a study last spring with an organization called Helsinki Business Hub because they wanted to know if open data creates business. So there's a publication about that, which I put in the that's in frictionless data chat now. So yeah, but it would be really interesting to know how it turns out in France, because we had a workshop with like local businesses trying to find like do they and how do they use open data in their business, and we recognized this pattern that the ones that were really happy were using OpenStreetMaps, and the ones that weren't so happy but still used it because it had features like OpenStreetMap has. So the kind of stuff like data harmonization, open standards, cloud service, community, and some kind of quality promise, these kinds of things. So so yeah, I think this is really interesting to follow how it turns out and what kind of business models you find. But also it would be great to kind of like keep in touch about, because open data will not be sustainable and we will not get all the data sets open that we would like if it doesn't create business. So it's really good to hear that you're trying to do it this way.
Definitely. What we noticed at the beginning is that there are a lot of people in the open data world that are freelancers, individuals, and also one reason we wanted to create a cooperative is that all these independent workers that support open data project need some stability, and it's a cooperative company or one way of doing that, as they are democratically controlled. So just to remember, it's each employee has an equal right to vote in the company, and so you can decide on who are the leaders of your company. And so it's really valuable, as it also gives you so you have an employer. You're not just and you also have social rights that you have difficulties finding if you are freelancers. So it's also gives advantage to freelance workers.
Yeah, this is very well documented with geodata, particularly with NASA, with others as well.
The cooperative model is also used by OCDS.coop. I think it's the email. Open Data Services co-op, and they also followed this model, and we're really interested if other cooperative can start on that, and maybe to build a global networks of open data supportive co-ops. That would be great, actually.
That's an excellent idea. Cool. Thank you so much, Joel and Sam. It's really fantastic. Really great to hear.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for inviting us, and we're really glad we could meet all of you.
Cool. Of course. Yeah. And, you can always keep the conversation going on our, this chat room here is sort of ephemeral, and we can always, keep talking on our sort of Labs chat room if you want us to join and make friends there and sort of keep in contact. Great, excellent. So I wanted to switch over to the next topic, and I'm going to make Paul Olivier, if he's still on the line, we'll try to make him presenter because he should be. He's going to present on some ideas he had for adapting Freude for personal data. Paul Olivier, are you there? Okay, so he's having plug-in problems. No big deal.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I think to share the screen, I need to install a plugin. So I'll be doing that when I start talking. Right. So I'm here to talk about Freude and development of Freude, and also a project based on Freude. So the goal is to really have a discussion and try to move forward those projects. So feel free to interrupt at any point. So my name is Paul Olivier Dehaye. I'm based in Switzerland. My background is in mathematics and data science, but I've progressively become more and more interested in personal data issues. So first I should start with what freedom of information laws are. So I suspect most of you are familiar with this. There, in many countries, in all countries in Europe, in the US, there are laws that allow citizens to get access to documents created by the state. And the general purpose is one of transparency of decisions taken about individuals, taken about matters of public interest and things like that. And so, can you see my screen? Hello? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So one software that was developed through open knowledge is called Freude. Oops, no, that's not the one. Freude, and that software powers a bunch of websites. For instance, Freudenstadt. Can you see this this website now?
There's a Git repository that was.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Can you see it? Okay. So Freudenstadt is just a quite simple website. You can make requests to public authorities. So you can start. So the site is in German, obviously. You can start looking for. Okay. So some entity and that I don't understand, and then you can say that you are looking for information for some type of information. Enter your request for what kind of document you're looking for, your names and your contact information, and include a few settings, and then this produces a request, and the request is publicly viewable if the user wishes to. And then that creates an exchange with the authority where the authority says, well, you might have access to this document, you have the right of access, so let me include this PDF for you. And the authority might refuse, and then if they refuse, others can start adding comments here to try to help you formulate your request more precisely or exercise your rights fully. And that creates a whole exchange, and that exchange can be published, as you can see now. The website automatically will start blacking out personal information because that's not really relevant. And the point of the point of making it this way is that this increases pressure on the authority to actually release the documents, and this will also help activists figure out exactly what information is available, etc., etc. So that's the general background on freedom of information laws and how FOIDE helps you actually exercise your rights and how these rights can be executed collectively or exercised collectively and sped up essentially. So this is often used alongside open data because to promote open data agendas, because of course once this data is collected from public authorities, it can be analyzed in completely new ways and produce new value elsewhere. Any question about this concept of freedom of information, FOIDE, and open data? So I'll assume that there isn't. Now I want to switch gear and touch on to an issue that has to do with personal data specifically. And so instead of talking about data of public interest, I'm now talking about personal data. And instead of talking about public authorities, I'm now talking about private companies that are aggregating this personal data. Can you guys see the slide I'm showing now? You can type in, I'll see if you... Yes, yes, okay, thank you to those who write. So, okay, so this is meant to quickly present the big data value chain where a lot of data is aggregated about, a lot of personal data is aggregated about individuals and progressively refined and analyzed to eventually form predictive models and even prescriptive models. And in the current situation, the current market situation, this whole value chain, or big companies try to own this whole value chain, right? So you have Facebooks and Google and Microsoft and Apple that just try to dominate the whole thing. And that means that this data is aggregated from different sources or different facets of the individual's life, electronic life, are aggregated based on agreements between very, very large companies. So I have some logos there, and this aggregation or this intermediation is done through APIs generally. But this is really not a user-centric generation of new value chains around this data. So that's sort of a problem, and there is this movement called MyData that's trying to solve this. So this is my summary of the MyData movement. There was a big conference in Helsinki. I'm sure lots of you know about this. So the idea is to take data, personal data, from many different sources and centralize it around the individual, give as much control as possible to the individual to control how this data can be repurposed, and so to empower the individual to really decide on new value chains. So you go from the model on the left to the model on the right, where individuals get to decide on new ways of using this personal data, and it's quite important that there's not just one individual in the center, but some ad hoc association that will decide to repurpose this data some other way. So that's a general movement, and as I said, this is a big movement that has started for a while, and they had this big conference that was really a turning point in August, September in Helsinki. Now, the crucial step here is the one that really puts the individual in control of their data, or that enables individual to get a copy of their data. And for this, there are different ways. Facebook or Uber might open up an API, but that API is still under the control of the data controller, so of the big company that has personal data. There's another tool that's more aggressive that is called the subject access request. So it's exactly analogous to when the government releases willingly or actively data as opposed to doing a freedom of information request to force the government to make data open. So that tool is called a subject access request. It's really a legal tool, and the principle is quite simple: is if some private company, so I insist, some private company holds data about you, holds personal data, then you can ask that company to get a copy of that data. There'll be exceptions, for instance, in order to protect intellectual property and in order to preserve, to protect techniques that the state might use or might impose on those companies regarding surveillance and so on. There will be protections, but you have quite a lot of rights in terms of what you can access. But again, this is a right that can be exercised individually, and it's quite difficult. You need some collaborative work to understand how the rights work and how to best use them, and you need to really you need to really figure out how to extract new value from the data that has been aggregated by every single individual one at a time. All right, so questions about this? I know it's a lot of information to pass on very suddenly. So thanks, Dan. So clearly the way I've presented it, there is a solution, there is a technical solution. The technical solution for helping lots of individuals do subject access requests and collaborate efficiently on those is to repurpose software that already exists for freedom of information requests. And so that was my thinking, and since I'm a Python person, and since I'm an open knowledge person, I figured the best thing to do is to use Freude, which is the open knowledge software to do freedom of information requests. So I've started my little project with a friend, Jérôme, and that you see on the right, and this project is called personaldata.io. So you will see a lot of parallels in personaldata.io with Freude. Of course, I went very quickly in trying to repurpose Freud or to switch Fragmentstat into a tool to actually do subject access requests, and to gain more experience. So I used to do those requests manually, and I've done dozens of them from dozens of companies manually, like all kinds of companies in the ad tech space, so the internet advertising space. You get lots of information about yourself, all kinds of data that's held in all kinds of different companies trying to do psychological profiles of you, or all kinds of profiling of you, etc., etc. And now with this website, I hope to help a lot of people do a lot more requests, a lot more activists to do a lot more requests for all kinds of goals. And I kind of want to stay agnostic about the potential goals, but I see potential in art, in education, in business, in activism, in all kinds of domains. So let's look at the website, how it presents itself. So there are data controllers, so entities that actually control data. So you can see that I have Facebook here. I have Proximus, which is a Belgian company, a Belgian phone company, Uber, Yahoo. I have also Cambridge University, which is a public entity that might hold private information, and so on and so on. So just a bunch of different entities that have data. And then I can do requests. And here are some examples of requests that one can do. And those are real requests. And you can see that, you know, I've started to use it for activism, and a few different people have started to use it for activism. But there are a lot more requests that you don't see there that haven't been publicized yet. And you can start looking at it yourself. So, for instance, if you ask Facebook to give you a copy of all the ads that they have ever shown you, what will be shown then, right? So, what will Facebook respond then? Well, they won't agree to it right away, but eventually they will, that's the hope. And so you can see the kind of arguments they will offer to counter that. So you will see that they say this is an infringement on their own intellectual property, and you can disagree with this statement, etc., etc. So I think everyone can get a sense of what I'm trying to do here. Are there any questions about the whole concept?
So did you harden it somehow already, or is that on the to-do?
Did I harden it? So I'm using a bunch of hacks, of quick hacks around Freude. It's not currently hardened, and also it's not really asking for data that I would consider myself really sensitive right now. So I'm willing to take some risks, if you want, around my own privacy to validate the concept. And also those requests take a lot of time to get a response to, and so on. So I don't expect to have a response within a few days. I have to wait for 1 month, 2 months, and so I hope to harden it as I go. Does that make sense? Or you might disagree with the technique, but this is what I say.
You'll probably get it hardened before you get a lot of answers. Right. And when you're doing it for yourself, it's fine. It's more about if you want to get like other people involved, then they will, because you of course trust your own service and you can run the servers down or whatever. But then if other people need to trust you and your server, then it becomes an issue if you're promising to make it safe.
Exactly. Also a legal issue.
Oh yeah, that right. Too. That yeah. Well, we're actually the Finnish Friday where we got a few hundred requests and we managed to get ourselves involved with the personal data ombudsman. So I have the Ministry of Justice knocking on my door now. Nothing serious, right. But when you start doing enough volume, they will notice you.
Of course, and yes, and there are multiple reasons why they will knock on my door very quickly. I do have an advantage, though, is that I'm based in Switzerland, and the law is different, and I can aim for serving individuals in Europe, so not in Switzerland, with companies located in the US. So I can make the situation quite complex, and it will take some time for people to actually knock on my door, if that makes sense. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Rufus. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but very low.
Very low? Is that any better?
Yes, I can. Yeah, here we go. Yes.
Still very low. Okay. So just I just said just seek forgiveness, not permission. I mean, your aim here is both to enable people to use access and publicize the issue. So I think it's just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, okay. I mean, one thing obviously longer term is you could start only holding stuff till the user downloads it, and then they can delete everything about whatever, and you only keep statistical information like what requests were made, did they get a response, what's the thread of discussion as opposed to the actual data. But I just think this is absolutely great, all of you, and I hope if we can any way we can get this publicized. Like if you have a short write-up, or even like the content from what you said today, if we just transcribed it, turned it into an interview with some screenshots, I just think this would be great to publicize. Get a Labs post up, get a blog post up. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just great.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. I think the best might be an interview. The other thing is that I've read very carefully the law, and I know quite a few levers that individuals can start exploiting to really scale those requests. So I'm pretty sure that if I can actually automate a lot of this through an API or something like that, I could really sort of do a denial of service kind of effort to really make this right effective. if that makes sense. So there is really a lot of potential with this tool. Right, but this is an OK Labs meeting, so I wanted to focus mostly on the tech aspects, and I wanted to try to figure out some way towards communal development of Freude that would allow for a nice repurposing for subject access requests. So more specifically, I know that Freude is currently used by a few entities around the world. So Fragdenstad, Code for a Y, in Finland, some unpronounceable name, and potentially others. I also know that the Freude repository is within Stefan Vermeer's GitHub repository, which might not be most desirable. There is some themes that are on top of Freude that are hosted in yet another repository. There's a lot of uncertainty for me around development of Freude. And since the development I'm proposing is on top of that and sort of not anticipated, I really wanted to make sure to discuss it with others. So one example of development that would need to happen specifically for this type of use has to do with identification, authentication, and keeping some of the information secret at the moment the request is made, and keeping a lot of the information of the substance of the response secret, because that's really personal data, right? But you might still want, you will still want to make the exchange public. So that's one aspect. Another is that Jaco was talking about potential security issues. So I want to fully understand that, and maybe we can talk about this now. If about those points, I have further points to raise. I see that there were some comments.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, I mean, Rufus in the chat mentioned possibly moving the actual repo to the OKFN repo, which would make sense given that it was partially funded, at least, by Open Knowledge International. And yeah, I mean, I think to whatever extent is whatever we or I could do to get a more centralized place to like solicit feedback and get sort of like group project going, I can definitely help. So yeah, I'm definitely
okay. So
gone.
So I see the comments from Rufus on the OK Labs badge. Sure, I already have an open knowledge reference at the bottom and want to keep it. And for Stefan, right? So it's still not. Yeah, so it's the same comment. And then there's Jaco's.
Yeah, we should go on.
Can you expand on what you're saying, Jaco, concerning decisions? I looked at the GitHub repository, but I didn't understand.
So we made about 400 freedom of information requests right now, and about a fifth of them goes through without peer support. And even those are made to officials who have already successfully answered freedom of information requests by others. So my feeling is that we are very close to the situation that when a freedom of information request goes to an organization for the first time, you really have to fight for it. And if you have to do it alone, it's pretty tough. So what we've had is that we've had a Facebook group where you can post your freedom of information requests when they start going slowly or you're not getting proper answers. And then you can have like journalists or lawyers or somebody who was there to comment the law or has made a lot of requests to kind of like give you a hint of what you should ask for or how you should argument it next time. So, for example, you told that you've read the law very thoroughly. So, for example, these kinds of like tips and hints you can give to other people. So that it would be very beneficial to. There is now a commenting functionality, but to kind of like build some kind of proper social media things like maybe integrations, maybe like notifications, these kinds of basic social media things that would help peers to support your requests.
Absolutely. So there is a commenting feature at the moment. You can write a comment, and there is a share this request on Twitter, Facebook, and there are feeds options. You can follow by email, but definitely there needs to be more in this direction. So the way I envision it is that you'll see your Facebook friend has asked for their geolocation data from the phone provider, and you can in one click do the same request. Right, so that's the way long term I might want it to go. The more crucial aspects for this to really properly be used by people right now is to fix some of the dynamic of making a request. So that's the first focus. If you right now with Freude you have a signature field, and that signature field will be used to anonymize the requests or to try to anonymize the requests. But that signature field is your name and your address. So it's not specific to the request or to the company you're requesting from, and so that it would need an extra field to contribute to the anonymization that is specific to the request. And to add to your comment about the difficulty of asking to a new controller, that's absolutely true. But there is a difference when you do subject access requests, is that with Freude, with the freedom of information, you're asking on behalf of everyone to make some information public, right? So that's a one step for each data controller for the whole world. It's very different for personal data, because if I ask for my personal data from the phone company, and I figure out how to do it, and eventually the phone company agrees that this is my right to get data, then a million other users of that phone company have to have access to that same data, but they still have to make the request. So it scales very differently, and it increases drastically the burden on the companies, to the extent that by my own effort, starting to ask on my own manually from dozens of companies for my personal data, those big companies have started to talk to each other on how to figure out how to respond to my request, and even written blog posts in the professional domain on the types of questions I've been asking. So it's a completely different power dynamics there, and that's why this right is so powerful, and why I said it was so crucial. So Jaco, you also said something about some kind of format for my data repository. I asked you to clarify.
Yeah, I think there should be some kind of protection for the data that's on the platform. As Rufus said, also there's a strategy that the data is removed after it is received, which improves the security, but still there should be there was two very obvious options that came to mind right away. One was that there's some internal network and then a reverse proxy, so when Freude gets the data, it writes it to a secure network. And then the other possibility would be if it's in DMZ that it would be encrypted, and then we would have to talk about crypto a bit, like how to do it so that there's not so many attack vectors. I'm myself quite intrigued by the idea of crypting the packages, because this would mean that even the sysadmin couldn't access users' data, which would be pretty cool. But it's of course also a bit of a hassle to design a way to encrypt files. And a lot of people, you know, there's not so many people that are really comfortable with GPG or other these kinds of cryptos. So we already know that there would be some user experience design related to this to kind of standardize the way of encrypting my data files.
Well,
And then there was this extra issue of that we actually solved because the ombudsman actually got after us, and they were saying that they will not release data to us if it contains people's names and it's sent in an email, in a PDF or what have you, as an unencrypted message. So we made this SSL certificate secured connection where they can upload the files directly to the platform with an SSL connection. So it's formally like that. Even if it contains private data, that wouldn't be accessed by outsiders. So that was something we needed to do, and it actually proved quite useful also because some of the files being uploaded are quite big, like for example with these as well. So email, not all email, especially public sector email servers handle big files very well. So making that upload functionality actually ended up us having happy public sector users who would upload the files very quickly and promptly to get rid of us. So that was a good experience.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I'm conscious of time right now. We're a bit over, but I didn't want to stop the conversation because it's so fascinating and great. I have I've drafted some potential next steps in the Gitter channel, specifically about drafting some blog posts, setting aside a session at the next Labs Hangouts just to continue the conversation, and reaching out and just practically reaching out to Stefan about his particular repo and what he'd like to do with it. And I think that would be, as far as I can tell, as far as I can see it right now, that'd be really great, excellent next steps to take, and we can just keep until the next hangout. We can keep the discussion in the forum, or yeah. How does that sound?
Yeah, I think I want to have it on the forum just to make our next conversation more efficient.
Totally.
But definitely there will be a need for a further conversation in the Labs Hangout.
Yeah, and I think the Labs, a nice Labs post, a post on Labs about the tech, and also I think it's also important to have a main blog post about the sort of the general idea of personal data. Like it's something that people are aware about, I think, but it's not so clear sometimes how people can actually take control of it. I think that'd be really great for the main Labs blog, the main Open Knowledge blog actually. So I can help with both those things, and that'll be great to sort of like generate some interest and generate some sort of movement behind this. So thank you, Paul Olivier.
Well, thank you for the time.
And thanks everyone else for joining. Again, the main chat room is here. I'm gonna share a recording of this particular hangout on the discussion forum post on about the hangout, and I'll probably just send out an email also to the actual Open Knowledge Labs email address. But thanks again, and yeah, really have a great day, and I can talk in Yako. We can talk about the labs venues just in the chat. I mean, I don't want to take up too much more time here. But great, thanks again, everyone, and have a nice evening.
Cheers.
All right, cheers. Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks.